Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Sunday Talks within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Nora Kyle, recently moved to the Bay Area, along with
your other host, Mushtaq Ali, in my lair of solitude here, Fortress of Solitude, whatever it was that they called those. Hanging out at the castle, also in the Bay Area. And what are we going to do tonight, Nora?
Tonight we're going to be talking about the three axes of meditation, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to focus tonight on the first axis of meditation, and we'll discuss more about that as we go. So for those who are watching on YouTube, thank you for joining us, and feel free to subscribe to our channel if you like our stuff that we're talking about here.
Or subscribe to it even if you don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
might
if you
learn
hate
something.
what we're doing, subscribe to it so that you can leave us evil comments or something.
Yeah, we're always open to feedback, whether that's in the form of comments or likes and dislikes on our material, and we benefit from that regardless of whether it's good or bad, because it's always educational, and that's what we strive to offer you, educational content. And so thank you for joining us, and of course thank you for everyone who's participating live, all of our favorite people. And yeah, so that's where we're starting off. So there you have it. Today we're going to be talking about the three axes of meditation.
And most specifically, the first axis.
Mm-hmm.
So the model is that you can take the concept of meditation or muraqabah or dhyana or whatever you want to call it and look at it along three different axes. As far as I know, Sufi types are the only ones who have ever used this model. I've never run across it anywhere else. But I'm going to share it now, and then all of the Hindus, Buddhists, and everybody else are going to steal it and claim that it was theirs all along. So either that or we stole it from somebody else. I don't know which. So we say that just as space has three axes or three dimensions, meditation has three axes or three dimensions. And those three dimensions or those three axes give us 6 points, 6 poles that we can move closer to or farther from. And the first axis that we're going to talk about is called wide focus or general focus on one end and tight focus on the other end, sharp focus.
Yep.
So soft focus, sharp focus, wide focus, narrow focus, all of that kind of stuff. And there are, we can represent meditation along this line with a perfect balance at the center point where all of the axes meet, which is called, by the way, the origin point. When you have like two axes or more crossing each other, where they cross is the origin point. And we will get into that in a later talk. But in this talk, we're looking at this one axis, which we're going to call the x-axis, just because geometry. So along the x-axis, we have wide, broad, open focus on one end, and on the other end of the axes, we have sharp, tight, narrow, concentrated focus. And you have techniques of meditation that will bring out one of these states or the other. Both are valid. Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
All right, yep. So when we look at the wide focus, we look at something like, say, Zazen. Zazen is very much just wide focus. You're just there. Everything is there. You're there. You are not concentrating on one particular thing. You're just sitting and nothing else. Whereas on the other end, you have some of the Tibetan Buddhist meditations, which require very profound, sharp focus on internal images and visualizations in order to achieve what they're after. And examples of that, what examples did we come up with? You know, the first thing I think of is Tummo, which is the Tibetan yoga of the psychic heat. It's one of the 6 practices of Naropa. And it requires some very, very intense, very, very detailed visualization in order to make it work correctly.
Yep. And yeah, so we've also come up with practices that we ourselves have touched on in the past and will continue to elaborate on going forward. And so one that our students may be already familiar with are present moment meditations.
Yeah, and that's the wide focus.
Mm-hmm. And then for a tight focus, it would be the diagram meditation that we talked about during our some of our previous talks and also during our Way of the Nomad series.
Yep.
Yep.
So tonight we are going to actually run you through how to do a present moment meditation and how to do a diagram meditation. Though we're going to use a much simplified diagram because it's easier for people who just wander in from YouTube to actually be able to do, rather than doing the full Naqsh al-Kabir, you know, the great seal.
Mm-hmm. So, where would we like to begin?
Let's begin with the present moment exercise, because that's so incredibly easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And this practice is meant to be simple. It's meant to allow you to be in the here and now and to train into that being your default state. So,
would you like to describe it, or shall I?
Why don't you get us started on that?
All right. So the first thing that you do in the way that we teach the present moment exercise is you allow your awareness to feel your breath, to notice your breath. You don't change your breath at all. You don't do anything with it. You don't think about your breath. You don't count your breath. You don't do anything with your breath, but just be aware of it. You know, and you'll notice that there's an inhale and an exhale, and there are minor pauses in between each. But you don't pay attention to that. You just pay attention to yourself breathing. So take a moment to just put your attention on your breath. And now, at the same time, let your attention be aware of the space around you. You're sitting in some form of a room or another. Everybody here is. There's nobody outside that I can see. And so just be aware of the space in the room. What's in front of you, to either side of you, behind you. Just be aware of yourself in the space and be aware of your breath. And take a moment to stay in your breath without changing it, without slowing it down, without doing anything to it other than being aware of it, and just being aware of your surroundings. Don't talk about your surroundings. Don't enumerate the objects in it. Don't do anything with your surroundings. Just allow your surroundings to be as they are and be aware of them. And then the fun part, allow yourself to be aware of your own awareness. Be aware of your awareness of breath. Be aware of your awareness of your surroundings, and be aware of your awareness of being aware. and hold all three of these as one event. Breathing, space, awareness. And let yourself just feel what that feels like. Let your mind be quiet. If it begins to say something or get chattery, just put that part of your awareness back on your breath and put the rest of your awareness in your environment and on your awareness itself. And you can allow yourself to stay in this state for as long as you like. And at first, you might find yourself distracted out of it, and you just pull yourself back in. Keep pulling yourself back into this state until you start getting good at staying here. And you'll find that your body wants to become stiller. There's a certain stillness of body that happens when you still your mind. And you just let your awareness be. And then, when you're ready, but not until you're ready, just take a big breath, feel the breath, let it out, and come back to consensus reality as much as this place sucks. We will make it suck less for you. And that's all there is to the present moment meditation. There is nothing more than that, nothing less, nothing more. It is just literally being present with your breath, your surroundings, and your own awareness.
Yep. And if there's anything that's particularly challenging about it, it might just be the pull of the thoughts that pop in and out. And letting go of those and not getting caught up in them it can be challenging, and it takes practice to just let them be. And in some senses, they do just float away. And in others, you just allow them to sit in the background. You'll get to them. It's just that this is a moment for you to give yourself space to be present.
So, any thoughts on that? Any questions? Any answers? What do you think? Tell us. Were you able to find that state? Or are you all still there? Have you all reached samadhi without us knowing?
How are you feeling, Soha?
I felt that I was in a vacuum. I definitely felt it was a different space for me. It brought my awareness, and being aware of the extent of my awareness was also new in that experience for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. Nice. How about you, Nancy? Or Zainab? You want to poke on Zainab?
I want to poke on Zainab for a moment. What do you think?
All right. Well, you're next, Nancy.
Okay. So is it me first or Zainab first?
It's whichever one of you starts talking first.
Well, the breathing and space around me is not too difficult. I'm never sure whether I'm really aware of my awareness. I tried.
Well, I suspect that you're actually doing better at it than you think you are. Just from having talked you through exercises like this before.
Okay.
Yeah, but I also know you have that internal critic that's going to go, "Am I doing it right?"
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
speaking as your external critic, you're doing it right.
Okay.
There you go. Good.
Now we're going to pick on Zainab.
Yeah. The stillness is cool. Do you recommend to do it like during the day while in your daily activities?
This is a
Uh,
sitting exercise.
This is a sitting. Okay.
Yes. Next week, we're going to talk about the second axis, the y-axis, which is movement and stillness.
Yep.
And that will help you understand what's going on here. But I recommend that this is done just as a sitting exercise. This is like doing Zazen, Sufi style.
Yeah, that is what it seems like. Yeah.
And do you recommend to do it as often possible in the day?
At least once a day, if this is what you're working on. More if you feel like it. The thing is, and this is important, what you practice, you get better at.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you are practicing this, you're going to get better at this. If you're practicing talking to yourself in your head, you get better at talking to yourself in your head. If you practice telling yourself elaborate stories about reality, that's what you get good at. And so this is designed for you to get good at the default state. There is a default state that we should all be able to enter into when we don't need to be doing anything else. In Sanskrit, it's called shanta, which means calmness or tranquility or peacefully sitting, doing nothing.
Yep. And the language I used earlier was that you're training into this being your default state. But the truth is, this has always been your default state. You're just regaining access to it as a result of, trying to break through all of the detritus that builds up around daily living. Stuff that we train ourselves to use as distractions from this default state.
Yep.
Is the default state always running in the background?
The default state is always in potentia in your consciousness. It will get covered over with action states, which is appropriate. You can't live in the default state. And so you'll hit all of the other states around it. And we are soon going to be doing a class on the 9 rasas, the 9 primordial states of consciousness, of which Shanta is the first, and how they interact to create every kind of emotion you can think of and all of your ways of experiencing the world. So Ilmar, what do you think?
I like it. It seems like a very natural state, basically. It's an enjoyable state in a way.
I agree.
Yeah, it is.
And it is very much like Zazen, So it's,
Yeah.
Yeah, and I find it quite enjoyable too. Most people do.
Yeah.
There are some radical extroverts who it makes a little bit crazy because they aren't interacting.
Yeah. And I suppose if you're an action addict, that might also be a tough state to stay in.
The whole sitting thing, yeah. Yep.
Cherie, are you still with us? If you are, what do you think?
Yay.
I'm here.
There you are.
I'm listening very closely. It reminded me of the state of babies
Mm-hmm.
when they sit and people around them constantly think, oh, I have to entertain the baby, but the baby is just happy, just sitting,
Yep.
just breathing, just watching, just being. And if you really just have good access to babies and just watch them just be like that, and I just thought, I want to be like that. It's there. There's no, we're so quick to try and put qualities to this when it's just be there.
Yeah.
Just be aware. That's it, the end. And it's so lovely. So, you know, be like a child, be like the baby who
Yep.
doesn't need entertaining. It's just being. It's almost like if we become aware of that and we're close to children and babies, then to give them that gift to make it last as long as possible.
I guess that makes me curious because, I mean, I don't have any babies handy, but are you saying that the baby is also aware of being aware, as opposed to
Not
just
necessarily.
being aware of the environment and possibly their bodies and stuff?
You know, we have no objective way of knowing this,
Yeah, I certainly
but
don't.
there are some indications that this may be the case. I know that there have been some both EEG studies and fMRI studies on how babies' brains work.
Are we
And
having some connective difficulties?
who is? What? Were you talking to me, Kyle?
Are you there, Mushtaq?
I'm here. Are you there, Noor? I can hear me. Can anybody else hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody was just talking in the background. I don't know what they said, but
I think Noor is having connection difficulties.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I?
we're talking about the evidence for babies being aware of being.
Yes.
Mm.
Thank you. There's some indicators that this might be the case, but I don't think that we're ever going to know unless we can learn. I mean, even if we learn to access memories of ourselves as pre-verbal infants, you know, what would we say?
Right.
So there's no way to know that I know of.
No, just sometimes it seems to me that this, it almost becomes kind of like a canned slogan, you know, the innocence of the baby, right? And I'm not at all sure that they're really necessarily in that same state. But I mean, you know, there might be, as you say, there's,
There's
I don't know.
no way to know firsthand. So we might as well use it as a metaphor.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Makes sense.
All right. Let me find out what has happened with Noor. Oh, is she coming back in? Yeah, she got bumped out somehow. There she goes.
Made it back. What did I miss?
You missed everything. Secrets of the Universe. We went through them all. We're all done. You know, I just realized I should have run you through
Moving.
Next time we do that, I'm going to hardwire you into the router beforehand.
Okay, no worries, but
Yeah, you're freezing. You got crappy throughput. So I'm going to act as if I know what I'm doing until your connection mellows out. So the next part of what we're going to talk about is the focused meditation. And usually the way we teach this is with a diagram or an image that we use for visualization purposes. And you know, there's the usual image, but we're not going to talk about that one. That's for you special people who have been in other things. We're going to do the regular people's image, which is much easier to do. And so I'm going to pull that up on the screen share, and it looks like this. Can everybody see that?
Mhm.
Okay, so
Geometry, yay.
geometry. I love geometry. It was my favorite part of math.
I did okay. I surprised people by doing pretty well at geometry. Better than in algebra.
Yeah, I liked algebra, but geometry was
So,
fun.
here we got the cube.
Yeah. So here we have the image. And what you do with this is you put this image up somewhere at eye level. And then you do a moment or 5 of present moment meditation. And that gets you into the nice open focus with the image as part of your field of vision. And then you are going to slide all the way down the axis to the other pole of the axis. And you are going to focus your vision on this diagram until you've excluded everything else from your from your present moment. Your present moment is going to be just this image. And when you can do that, you close your eyes and you visualize the same image in your mind's eye until you can see it perfectly. So first you concentrate on the image itself, and you hold your vision on that image until you can exclude your attention from everything else and focus your attention just on this image. Once you have mastered that to where you can hold this image in your attention for a few minutes, then you practice closing your eyes and visualizing the image. This is the hardest part because you're going to have to visualize all of the lines on the image. And it doesn't matter how you build it. I oftentimes start with one square and then duplicate it, and that gives me the square in the middle, and then I just let the lines go between the two of them. So this is the first 2 steps to this meditation, and when you can master those 2 steps, you come to Noor or myself and you tell us, and we'll give you the next step. There are 7 steps to this meditation total. And this is the first 2, the looking at it and then the visualizing it. And what you're going to find, and I'm going to stop the share so we can talk to each other. There we go. What you're going to find is that you'll need to go back and forth at first. Look at the image, close your eyes, visualize the image, open your eyes, look at the image, going back and forth, working to keep your focus just on the image to the exclusion of everything else, with the exception of your breath. You can keep your awareness of your breath as you watch the image. But you don't even want, at this point, you don't even want or need the idea of being aware of yourself looking at the image. You just need to focus on the image and make one field between you as an awareness and the image as the object of your awareness and bring it way down into a tight focus. So whereas the present moment exercise gives you a good default state to be in, this gives you laser-like focus on the object of your attention, which is also incredibly useful and a valid form of meditation. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense, but it sure as hell is not the natural state, for me at least.
It's not easy. This is not an easy thing to do.
Expound a bit on what exactly its benefits are, so to speak.
Its benefits are to give you a very, very sharp, undistractable focus. And you also begin building the muscles of your attention. It requires a lot of attention to be able to do this exercise, because as you progress along it, you will be manipulating the perspective of the shape in your mind's eye. And in order to do that, you're going to be building a whole lot more brand new, shiny neural pathways that you have never had. And so this is an extremely useful state according to all of the ancient yogis. It's called dhyana, which means to concentrate the attention.
Yeah, well, what is it useful for? I mean, it gives me a sales pitch. I mean, this looks like it'd be a hell of a lot of work, to me at least. You know? So
I used to do 3D modeling and animation as a living. And so it was useful for me to be able to visualize the spaces that I was going to create.
Okay.
It's useful to me because I used that same focus back in the day when I was doing a lot of incredibly intricate beadwork. I used that same focus to stay on task for an hour and not lose myself or lose my place in what I'm doing or things like that. I use that focus in fencing when I need to focus down on an opponent to be really aware of their micro movements, to really be there with them. It has 100 different uses. And some of them may not be useful to you.
And the advantage of visualizing it as opposed to having like an external object that you're focusing on,
Well, you have both.
Yeah, I mean, what's the advantage of, I mean, visualizing it, to me, is a lot harder, obviously. But,
Yes. So you have this external object that teaches you how to visualize. And visualizing is only hard until you learn to do it. It's like you have an entire visual representational system that most people do not access very well.
And I guess what I'm asking here is, I mean, I can practice focusing just on the external object, and I can practice focusing in this exercise on moving that into visualization. Now, in both cases, presumably, I'm increasing my focusing muscle, so to speak. But once to get visualization part, to me at least, looks a lot harder. And so what's the
Nobody
sales
said
pitch
that
for-
this was easy, man.
No, I know, but I'm looking for a sales pitch here. I'm looking for what's my payoff for doing the visualization as opposed
I
to just.
don't know what your payoff is. I know what.
Now, what's your payoff? I mean, shit, you're the salesman here. So
Actually, I'm not selling this. I'm just telling you what it is. But for me,
okay, all right, all right.
I can look at a problem, and I do this all the time. So my buddy Vince and I are in our forge, and we are looking at how to do a particular thing. and I visualize how I'm going to do it before I do it. And then I talk it over with him.
Okay.
And then I may re-visualize it because of new information. And then when I do it, it works.
Okay. All right. I
It's
can
like
see that. Yeah.
every engineer should know this. This is something that we need to be able to do as human beings, is plan something and then execute it. God, everything I've ever built, I have visualized first. I've put it together in my mind before I ever put it together in real time.
Okay. Okay. I can see that.
Does this help with non-visual intellectual projects?
Yes, it will, because it will increase your focus, and you will probably be able to create visualizations for your non-visual projects if needed. There are other meditations that will sharpen your ability to sense, to feel. And there are meditations that will sharpen your ability to both listen and create auditorially. It's just, we start with vision because that's easiest for a large number of people. And interestingly, it wasn't initially easy for me because I'm not a visual lead person. Visual is not my main representational system. My main representational system is auditory, so I had to teach myself how to do this, which I think is one of the reasons that I love geometry so much, is I could visualize triangles and cones and squares and cubes and circles and spheres and all of this, and see the relations to them. But it is a form of mind exercise. It's like lifting weights for your mind. And the whole point is to sharpen your ability to concentrate your attention. You need your attention at times to become one-pointed. Single focus. Not all the time, but sometimes. But when you do it, you better be able to pull it off.
I say something
Yes.
that follows what Ilmar was saying. My experience with this cube was that de-assembling how I can visualize this in my head really helped me to focus further, to look at it further. By that I mean I was like, okay, there's two squares and there's continuous lines that are connecting to them. And that allowed me to look at it a layer deeper than the first, trying to memorize where everything is. Deconstructing the shape really helped me to really focus. It was a different experience. So yes. So in regards to Ilmar was saying, I can just look at it and focus. For me, trying to visualize it took me a step further in focusing to the shape. If that makes sense.
Thank you. Yes.
So what do you think, Nancy?
Well, it's interesting. My ability to visualize it got a little better, even though it's not very sharp. It's fun to flip it between the two views, you know, with one square to the front pointing down or the other square to the front pointing up.
Yeah.
And wondering if it's worth trying to see it as flat.
Yes, as a matter of fact, over time you will see it as a number of different shapes. The two easiest are the looking from above, looking from below. You can make it look flat. You can bring that center square out. You can push that center square in. You can do a number of different twistings and turnings of it. And over time, you learn to do that. You don't do it all at once. This is why I just gave you the first two steps. Look at it, visualize it. The rest of the stuff will happen as it happens. What do you think, Cherie?
Cherie, you're muted.
I was making it like a cube, making it like a container, making it flat, and it's interesting to do things like that with, as you said, creating with the beading, with origami. All of those things gives you a spatial awareness of what's in front of you, and it just makes you look at things, how they fit. I mean, I've just moved house, and so I was being able to visualize exactly what I wanted, how it would fit, how it would be in relationship to other things. It's really nice, actually. You don't go in to something blind. You actually have some idea and sense of its bones, of how to flesh it out. So this simple design just gives you that sense of exactly what's in front of you and what you could do with it. Opens other possibilities. That's how I see this kind of viewing and observation, and being able to allow something else to rise. And oh, I never saw that before. Oh, so just by giving time and not saying it's going to happen in a minute or an hour or a day or a week, it will just arise when it's going to happen, nothing else. But it's really nice to have that ability to be able to become observant of as your surrounding and what you can do with it, what's the possibility. And I like the fact that Mushtaq commented on being able to visualize it. You take your time, you don't rush these sort of things and assemble the model or whatever it is that you're doing. It's just like, take the time to look at everything around you, and then you can see its relationship and how it comes together. It just transposes into cooking, sewing, beading, furniture making, gardening, everything. I really like it. I've been using a view from my balcony here is a big bamboo grove, and just looking at the bamboo, the same thing every time. But Ken pointed out to me the other morning, did you see the new corm that came up? I hadn't even noticed it. But there's this massive 3-meter high corm that has come off of the side, and I didn't even notice it. And then I looked even more deeply, and there was more than one, and it was just lovely. That's how I see these practices. Makes me more appreciative. There's a gratitude that comes in with being able to see these details and to enjoy what I'm seeing right in front of me.
And that sounds perfect.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys brought up the visualization factor, because it's also about expanding your creativity, your ability to think flexibly and manipulate visuals in your own mind. That's one aspect of creativity and creation.
Yeah. And one of these things that becomes incredibly useful, if you are somebody whose mind is trying to do the whole monkey mind thing, and you have developed your focusing muscles, you can turn off the monkey mind through main strength of your ability to concentrate on one thing. And that has a lot of value. What do you think, Zainab? I know you've been doing this exercise for a while.
I'm happy actually it's the cube this time, which is the other one, the more complex one. There's too many variations. It's nice, but you can get, for me as a geometry, constructing person, it gets too complicated. So actually, I like that it's just a simple one to build. As Cherie says, step by step, not getting the complex. Also, I like how it makes more sense with the axis where you've got both. Like as in, yeah, practicing them together, it brings something that usually we miss. We just tend to move toward one side. Yeah, no questions though.
Yeah, but those were some good answers.
I have a question. I mean, is this axis, is it a continuous axis? I mean, in other words, do we have things in the middle someplace?
Yes.
And what would that be like? Or is it just
like things that we're going to be talking about in the next two talks?
Okay.
But basically, so it's a continuum between pure focus and pure tight focus and pure broad focus. So, I mean, theoretically, that axis could be infinite, but for our cases, we're going to say that it's finite somewhere. For our intents and purposes, there are ends to the axis. There are poles, as it were. And so if you think of this as, you know, open, broad focus versus tight, narrow focus as one axis, and then let's say stillness and movement as another axis. Now, somewhere where those two axes cross at the origin point, there is going to be this sort of balance in all four of those things. And then when you add in the third axis, the z-axis, then you're going to have six things. And strangely enough, they fit with the 6 processes that y'all learned about in that class way back when. Each of these meditations is more relatable to one of the 6 processes, which I found very, very interesting.
Forward to it.
Say again?
I say I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking forward to going over it ourselves. You know, we're finally getting you know, it's good to have these maps, because then it helps you understand, what am I working on when I work on this practice? This will give us a better idea about how to describe that and visualize it. Yep.
So, any other questions?
Well,
Go, yes, Nancy?
well, one was just, my first thought for highly concentrated meditation was the idea of when you pay attention to your breathing, you just feel the air moving in your nostrils.
Yep, that would be a form of kinesthetic concentration.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good thing.
I admit, it seems like a very limited approach to breathing, but it might be good for concentration.
You know, any approach to breathing can have benefit. So that is one of the steps in doing kinesthetic concentration as opposed to visual concentration.
Mm-hmm.
There are a number of different ways you can do that, but being aware of the breath moving through your nostrils is particularly good because it doesn't require any visualization at all. If I say, be aware of your third eye, most people will visualize their third eye.
Right.
And they'll get it wrong.
Right, right. Yeah, this might just be me. I feel like the breath moves through a much larger area, and just focusing on this one little bit is losing so much, but
Well, later on, you can expand it to your entire lungs.
right.
Other thoughts?
Can I ask something?
Of course.
Is the void practice related to any of these two meditations?
Yes. The void practice is going to be, one of the axes of the void practice is going to be on the present moment exercise axis. It's going to be on that side. But there are other things involved in it as well. Once you get this model, you will be able to both see and create very complex meditations as necessary. One of the reasons that we learn it, I learned it and Noor learned it, so that we can tailor a practice to the student. We don't have to just have a one-size-fits-all meditation. We interact with our students and see what they need, and we craft the meditation with the understanding of these 3 axes and 6 poles. And so each person can have something that suits them better than other things.
Or
But
that, hones in on what they need to work on
yep.
most seriously. Yeah.
So you got my curiosity. You mentioned 2 of the axes. You may have mentioned the third one, but if so, I didn't label it as the third one. We've got narrow, broad. We've got the still movement. What's the third one?
The third one is verbal, nonverbal.
Oh, okay. Okay. Cool.
So one other question.
Yes.
So with the 3 axes and 6 directions, you have 8 spaces?
Nope.
No,
No, you have 6.
you have 6. Yes.
I was going to do up a drawing like that as well, but I didn't have time. So we're just out of luck for that until the next time. I will have the drawing of all 3 axes so you can see.
Oh, I was wondering about the size of the cube that you visualize.
That's entirely up to you. Unless I say, make it this big, make a cube as big as your head. Other than that, it doesn't matter unless you have a specific instruction.
Okay, because it seems emotionally kind of different to make it very small.
Do you like it better or less than making it big?
I like it differently.
Okay. Do both then. Play
Yeah.
around with it. Yeah. Habitually, when I don't visualize the cube, I visualize the full diagram, but when I visualize it, it's about yay big by yay big. And that's just what's comfortable for me. And part of that is because the diagram that was drawn out was that size. So what you're going to do. More questions? Zoha, you must have a question for me.
I think what I'm following is that we did 2 practice just now, and still, I don't know what's the 3rd practice, but I'm waiting.
Yeah, we did 2 poles of 1 practice. Next week, we are going to do 2 poles of a 2nd practice. And then the 3rd week, we are going to do 2 poles of the 3rd practice.
Thank you.
So each of these triplets or doublets are a continuum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, we're going to sneak those in when you ain't looking.
Exciting.
Next thing you know, you'll be all enlightened and stuff, and you won't even know how you got there. Which is the best way. All right. Any last questions, or I'm going to end the talk for the evening? All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here with
Yes.
Noor and her terrible camera and me.
I know. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to be fully present here, but thanks for bearing with me. And
We will fix it for next time.
yeah, next week will be better. But in the meantime, y'all did good. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting on to the second Axis next week.
Yep.
Mhm.
Bye, everybody.
Night.